Welcome to the Ice Guys NHL Stanley Cup Playoffs betting show. Monday, May the 1st, a brand new month in the middle of the second round of the Stanley Cup Playoffs. I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review, joined by my colleague Andrew McInnes from the Maritime Provinces. As always, the second round, we're right in the smack dab middle of it. We've had a lot of interesting developments over the past week since the second round began, and we're going to break them all down, every one of the four series here on today's show. It's going to be a shorter show today, about 30 minutes, but we'll break down each and every series. Andrew, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Ian. The hockey's been great. A lot of high-scoring games, a little bit different than earlier on in the playoffs, but looking good for what you and I previewed for last week.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, we talked about, Edmonton being live against Anaheim, and they're up 2-1 in that series. We talked about Nashville, being able possibly to ride the momentum that they had in sweeping Chicago. I thought, I know Chicago didn't play their best, but I also said you got to give Nashville some credit. They played a great series. I think a lot of that series sweep has to go to Nashville on the way they played defensively, how their blue line is contributing offensively, with PK Subban, Roman Josi, Ryan Ellis. I mean, the goals are coming left and right from that Nashville blue line. Since I'm talking about that series a whole lot right now, let's start with that one because it's just on the top of my mind right now. Nashville-St. Louis, 2-1 series lead for the Nashville Predators. Really dominance by the Predators yesterday in that 3-1 victory in Game 3. St. Louis Blues heavily outshot, heavily outplayed. The territorial edge massively in Nashville's favor. And really, the St. Louis Blues performance yesterday, maybe one of their worst of the entire playoffs. Mike Yeo said he's got to make some changes with his lines. He's going to be looking at a few personnel adjustments going into Game 4. But really, the trouble that the thing that I have really seen with Nashville, Andrew, is that Peter Laviolette's been a coach that throughout his entire duration in the NHL, he's been push the pace, push the tempo, push the attack, go up and down the ice. We're seeing him alter that mindset a little bit. When Nashville gets a lead in these games, boy, they're tough. I mean, they did it against Chicago. They clogged up the neutral zone. They really try to limit speed through that area of the ice. And when that happens, it makes it tough to get the puck deep. It makes it tough to generate a forecheck in the defensive zone. And that was the issue for St. Louis throughout that hockey game on Sunday. They just could not generate sustained pressure, sustained zone time against Nashville. It just basically choked them off at the pass with clogging up that neutral zone, and almost like a no zone or a danger zone. You skate through the neutral zone, you're about to perish. That's basically what Nashville's been doing here in these playoffs, just not allowing teams time or space to make plays in the center ice area. They did it to perfection against St. Louis once they got that lead. Very impressed with the Nashville Predators, continue to be impressed with their blue line, continue to be impressed with the likes of Philip Forsberg, continues to have a great series for them, and Pekka Rinne and net steady and solid as he's been throughout the playoffs. Do the St. Louis Blues have an answer in your mind, Andrew?
You know what? Long term, Ian, I really don't think they do, and they don't have much time. Saying long term, I just mean down the road, next couple of games. Do I think they'll get another win? Possibly. But the Predators, in my mind, are outright just better than the St. Louis Blues team. Why? Well, let's just revert back to last series for the Predators. You look at these teams, everyone thought, wow, Chicago was playing really bad. Didn't think that they could get anything going, making the Predators look good. Fully disagree. Predators were always known to be a great defensive team, Ian, and we know that. Pekka Rinne, great goalie, but now they're actually putting pucks in the net. And like you said, they're a very hard team to come back from. If they have a lead already, it's hard to come back. So with Ellis, Josi, Subban on your blue line contributing, and in the playoffs, in my opinion, it's important that you have your back end and your blue line playing very well. So I just don't think St. Louis is getting the dangerous scoring chances that they need to. I mean, you can fire all the pucks on net that you want, but if you don't get those exact dangerous scoring opportunities, then it's not going to help you with anything. So in my opinion, Predators are going to face the Edmonton Oilers in the conference finals.
I still believe that too. I know Edmonton's made it a little bit more difficult on themselves after last night's performance, which we'll get to in just a second. But yeah, I mean, the Nashville Predators have a very good team concept thing going. And boy, I'm telling you about home ice advantages that years ago, would anyone have said that the Nashville Predators have one of the best home ice advantages in the NHL? No, I mean, this was a team that was on the brink, or a city and a franchise that was on the brink of being moved and relocated out of Nashville. We're talking about, Hamilton, and remember the whole Blackberry thing with Jim Balsillie trying to get the team out of Nashville to Hamilton. I mean, there was definitely talk about that happening, and all of a sudden, Nashville keeps the team, and now you're talking about a Nashville team that's got one of the best home ice edges in the NHL. That place is loud; they're nuts. They go crazy there at Bridgestone Arena for this team for their home games, and it's really made a difference here for Nashville. They've got all the country stars down there. Carrie Underwood, of course, is married to Mike Fisher, who plays on the Nashville Predators. They got big and small down there. All these country bumpkins basically getting into hockey all of a sudden down there in Nashville, Tennessee. And really, it's been amazing to see the renaissance of the sport in Nashville. It's a hot ticket. It's been a hot ticket. They've benefited. Don't get me wrong. They've benefited from having a good team year after year. That's helped the interest, but still, I never saw hockey thriving this much in Tennessee as it is and as it has the last few years. Very impressed with Nashville for sure. Some of these other players too for St. Louis, their depth players sort of got to step up for them as well offensively. I think Alex Pietrangelo, and the captain of the Blues, has to take his game as well on the back end to another level. We'll see where that goes. The next game of that series is scheduled for Tuesday night, May 2nd. Game 4, Nashville, a -170 home favorite in that game, total of 5. I'm going to lean under in that Game 4. I'm going to stick to my guns that this is going to be a lower scoring series. We finally had an under for the first time in Game 3. Game 1 went over. Game 2 was a push. In terms of the total, Game 3 stayed under. I think we see fewer goals than more goals the rest of the series as it goes on. Let's move on now to Anaheim, Edmonton, the other Western Conference semifinal series. The Edmonton Oilers, a game they did not deserve to win in Game 2 in Anaheim. Absolute theft, thievery by Cam Talbot for the Edmonton Oilers in that game. Anaheim was fantastic, but could not beat Cam Talbot, allowing the Oilers to literally steal a win. And the Oilers' sloppy play in Game 2, bad habits, giveaways, lackadaisical play, not hustling, not winning the one-on-one battles for loose pucks, that plagued them in Game 2, but they got away with it. That also plagued them in Game 3. Didn't get away with it this time. Anaheim was ready to go right from the drop of the puck. Desperation, down 2-0. Can't afford to go down 3-0. 3 goals in the first period. In fact, 2 goals by the time there was the first TV timeout about 7 minutes into the game. Tremendous opening to the game for Anaheim. They were ready to go. Edmonton was not. And I'm telling you right now, Edmonton was made the Stanley Cup betting favorite to win the Stanley Cup prior to Game 3 in Edmonton last night. And I'm telling you, it's the kiss of death. It's almost, and somehow I'm sure that got back to the players and the coach that, hey, Oilers are now the favorite to win the Stanley Cup. It's like a kiss of death. It's like the number 1 ranked team when you move up to number 1 in college football, or specifically number 1 in college basketball. What happens to the number 1 team, especially in college basketball? Once they become the number 1 team in the AP poll or the national poll, whatever the case may be, they lose the next game. It happens so much in college basketball. That team that ascends to number 1 and they get knocked off that pillar in their very first game as the new number 1 team in the country. Sort of has that feel what happened with Edmonton last night. All of a sudden, they're the Stanley Cup favorite over Pittsburgh and some other teams. And just like that, they lose 6-3 at home to the Anaheim Ducks. Anaheim was just the better team, start to finish. Cam Talbot, not one of his better games. I kind of thought that might be the case following that stellar stand on his head effort against Game 2. I've seen that a lot. A goalie stands on his head one game, doesn't necessarily carry over to the next, looks a little bit more human in that next game, and that's what happened with Cam Talbot last night. Bad giveaways. I mean, the Darnell Nurse giveaway on the third Anaheim goal by Ryan Getzlaf. I mean, you gotta find your teammates. What are you doing just rimming the puck around the boards like that with no outlet? And that's exactly what happened. Anaheim cuts it off, and Getzlaf takes it in, and with a brilliant finish past Cam Talbot. Not a good game for Edmonton. Nothing to panic about. They're still up 2-1. They win the next game. Things are okay. But will they win the next game? Is this a legitimate series-turning victory for Anaheim? We'll see. But I'll tell you what right now, if Edmonton doesn't win Game 4, we're going back to Anaheim in Game 5 tied 2-2. If that happens, things are going to get a little tight under the collar for this very young Oilers team.
Well, I'll start with that last play that you said there, Ian. Darnell Nurse firing that puck along the boards. And that's something that you hear, when teams are playing beer league hockey, or you're playing hockey with your friends out in the pond just firing the puck. I mean, you have to look for someone to pass that puck to. With all the players on this team that can handle the puck so well, Ian, and enter the neutral zone, that shouldn't be happening. Especially when you have Ryan Getzlaff and players like that of the caliber that this Anaheim Ducks team has, to just throw the puck away like that. I mean, you have possession, you're in your own end, and he decides to just slap the puck along the boards. I mean, if that would have worked, sure, maybe he would have gotten a good bounce, made him look good. But these guys have to realize it's the playoffs. And like you said, I think that was an issue. You know, they found out, oh, we're the favorites, but I'm not going to ever say that the players realized that and took the foot off the gas pedal. One thing I want to talk about really quickly is about how, in comparison to right now the NBA playoffs, how little of a factor home ice advantage has been. Really, it seems like teams are playing better on the opposing team's home ice, but it goes to show that these two teams, it doesn't matter really what game it is. If you're down 3-1, down 2-1, these guys have to realize that it's going to be a really high scoring game if you don't play well, good defense. I mean, yesterday I had the over in the Ducks and Oilers game, and I cashed it in the middle of the second period. I mean, you have to expect at some point that after those first two games, Anaheim was going to break out. And I have to say, you said about Cam Talbot kind of stole that game too. Well, if you take a look at some of the highlights, tell me that Edmonton didn't really fight hard to come back. I mean, game's tied 3-3. The 4-3 goal is a deflection off Cam Talbot's blocker and in. That's a tough break for them. But shout out to John Gibson. What extraordinary goaltending from him. And he might be getting overlooked right now because the goal scoring finally came and showed up for the Anaheim Ducks, which, if you think the Anaheim Ducks need to perform on that level, need to score that many goals each game to do well against the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that's the case because I think Anaheim can beat Edmonton in a lower scoring game. It can happen, especially if John Gibson plays the way he did last night. I mean, John Gibson deserves credit because game 2 is one of those games where you're watching the other goalie at the other end get all the shots, stand on his head, and the one or two times Edmonton comes down on you they basically score in game 2 of that series, and John Gibson's made to look like a chump compared to Cam Talbot. He gives up these amount of goals that he gave up on a limited amount of shots, where Cam Talbot is just absolutely just playing out of his mind, out of his skull, and just playing absolutely outstanding net minding for the Edmonton Oilers. But he bounced back from that. I mean, it must be tough to see the opposing goalie just play that well, but he showed he's mentally resilient, mentally tough. Great performance. Great performance, too, in terms of the key timely saves he made when Edmonton rallied back to tie the game at 3. Edmonton was really pressing, and boy, without a big-time stop or two from John Gibson at that moment in the second period, with that game tied at 3, it could have been a different outcome. I mean, Edmonton was really pressing at that time, and then basically, when it was 3-2, he made those big saves. McDavid made the stop. McDavid with the fantastic goal, rather, to tie the game at 3, and then Anaheim came right back, made it 4-3. But actually, it was when it was 4-3 Anaheim, Gibson made some big-time saves. Edmonton kept pressing. That fourth goal really didn't rattle them. He just held the fort. Anaheim went into the second intermission with that lead, even though Edmonton was really coming after it and just peppering John Gibson with shots in the latter half of that second period. And then it seemed like Edmonton wore themselves out a little bit. At that time, third period started. Anaheim came on again, got that fifth goal. Todd McClellan challenges for offside, does not win that challenge, end up going up 5-3, and that was basically the goal that wrapped it up for the Anaheim Ducks. Edmonton was really not the same team after that fifth Anaheim goal went in. But John Gibson's goaltending, Andrew, at 4-3, late in that second period, big time from him, especially after, a game where he didn't play as good as Cam Talbot, a limited number of shots. He loses that game. Bounce back that way. Very impressive. And the Anaheim Ducks are a veteran-laden team. I didn't expect the 2-0 series deficit to rattle them, to shake them, to make them panic. It's definitely a team that played their best game when they needed it. But if you're Edmonton, you're a young team. Todd McClellan's got to go in there, calm his guys down. We didn't play well, but we're up 2-1 in the series. We come back and we take care of business at home in game 4. We're in great shape. We're still in the driver's seat. There's no need to panic right now. We didn't play well. They did. They were the better team. Just come ready to play. work hard in practice, get ready for Wednesday night, because you're going to need to be better. And if you are, and you can get to 3-1 in this series, you put a lot of pressure on Anaheim, back to Anaheim for Game 5 of this series.
Yeah, you hear all the time where teams will be up 2-1 and they're almost feeling upset because they kind of lost momentum and lost the pressure, Ian. Well, I disagree. These two teams, sure, they're kind of at a standpoint right now where the momentum's kind of shifted a little bit towards the Ducks. But like you said, all the pressure is still on the Ducks to come back. Connor McDavid said in the interview, hey, I would have rather be up 3-1, or sorry, 3-0, but that's not the case. 2-1 is still a lot better than a tied series or what have you. So, like you said, some people right now are commenting about what we think about heading out in this series. I think they're going to have a good practice. They're going to calm their team down. And I kind of am going against you on that as far as the Ducks go, because I believe that the Oilers are going to put goals in every game. They're going to put a good number, probably about 3 goals at least. So I think the Ducks have to play shutdown D, but I mean, they're going to have to put up consistent numbers to have luck in this series. So moving forwards, next game is going to be huge. Like you mentioned with the under, it could go just flat, but I just can't see a 2-1 game happening, and I can't see, as this series moves on, as great as these goaltenders are. I mean, even if it's gonna be off a leg, off a skate, a tap in by the net. Do you understand? I just mean that I just can't see the rest of this series going under the total. Like, just too close to the series. Both goaltenders are playing so well, but with the caliber of these players that are on these two teams and with the fight that they're showing, it just seems like it's hard to predict a low scoring game.
Well, here's the problem, and I said, and I should preface this, when I said Edmonton can win a low-scoring game, I mean against anybody. But for this series in particular, and I said this in our preview of this series, I actually did think it would be a higher-scoring series. I've cashed a couple overs in this series, and I'll tell you what your problem is if you're looking to bet games in this series under the total. Look at the penalties we're seeing. This has been a nonstop theme for the Anaheim Ducks in their playoff run. 4 games against Calgary, first 3 games against Edmonton. There's been an average of over 8 penalties per game in Anaheim games. You're asking for trouble betting unders when you're seeing this kind of parade to the penalty box. And the fact that Anaheim's had a great power play, a very poor penalty kill Anaheim has had here in the playoffs. Edmonton's got a capable power play, the weapons they can put out on the ice with the man advantage. This is a tough series to be looking to bet unders in. I mean, it's been a penalty parade. There's been a ton of power plays. It's been chippy. There's been extracurricular activities after the whistle. And it's been a problem for looking to bet unders. I know the one game stayed under, game 2, but why did that stay under? Cam Talbot played out of his mind. That's why. There were chances, there were shots, there were power plays. He just had one of those games where he was in an absolute zone for the Edmonton Oilers. So, yeah, long term in this series, not a series I'm looking to bet under the total on a game-by-game basis. And I noticed your comment here wanting to talk about Jordan Eberle. Even Todd McClellan last night said it about him. He's starting to get a little frustrated with him. He says, we need more. He didn't. Now he was still calm. He says, he's going through the playoffs for the first time like everyone else, and he basically said that, hey, it's a learning procedure for him playing in the playoffs. But you're right, he's not non-factor out there. He's not going to tough areas of the ice. He's not going to the net. It seems like when the puck's on his stick, rather than skating, he's hesitating. He's passing off instead. He's just not being that confident player and that creative player that we have become accustomed to seeing from Jordan Eberle. Does it get fixed? We'll see, but he is one of those players that Edmonton really could use to get going. I mean, they've had good performances from Cassian, Maroon, from McDavid, of course. Slepyshev has been great in the playoffs. Draisaitl's been fantastic, but they need more from Jordan Eberle, a whole lot more.
Well, Todd McClellan has mixed up the lines quite a bit in this series. He tried Milan Lucic, Eberle, and Connor McDavid. And of course, the original line of Maroon, Draisaitl, and McDavid's been kind of mixed and matched throughout this series and throughout the playoffs. What do I need? What do I really need from Eberle? It's just the fact that don't look so hesitant with the puck. Don't look like you want to get rid of it the second you get it. And when I say that, I don't mean don't look to pass it. I just mean don't look like you're scared to make a play. Growing up and watching him, I saw him play in the World Juniors, World Championships here in Halifax. He had a dominant performance for the World Championships under U18, everything. So he grows up. He's a great player. Right now he's surrounded by other players that are great, such as Connor McDavid. So I think he needs to have that confidence back, just play his game, And I think he's a great player, Ian. That it's going to come out soon. So on that next game, I think it's not going to be pressure on him, but I think he knows it's time for him to step up. As far as other players go, I think what's always been good for this team, I think this is one of the reasons why you had them as one of your future bets, is that it's not just Connor McDavid that needs to show up, right? It's not just him that needs to play well. But from what I've seen, Connor McDavid hasn't really been playing his best, and that's a good and bad thing. Why is it a good thing? Because he can only get better, and he's only going to get more dangerous. He's yet to have a multi-point game. I'd look to see him have a pretty excellent rest of this series, but we do need to expect a little bit more from him, not only just goal-wise, but just creating opportunities for his teammates.
No doubt. We'll see if that APB is answered on Jordan Eberle in Game 4 and future games in this series. Eastern Conference, Ottawa, New York Rangers. How about those pesky, resilient, tough, mentally strong Ottawa Senators? 2-0 series lead. Fall behind multiple times against the New York Rangers in a whale of a game, too. If you didn't see it on Saturday afternoon, fantastic hockey game. The Ottawa Senators pull it out 6-5. They rally from a 5-3 deficit in the third period. 2 late goals. 4 goals from Jean-Gabriel Pageau, one of those prototypical players like a Joel Ward has been over the years. A guy that in the regular season, a mundane regular season, a run-of-the-mill regular season, come alive in the playoffs, score big goals at big times in big spots. Look at the hat trick he had against Montreal in the playoffs with the Ottawa Senators a couple of years ago. But again, this Ottawa team, they're rallying together. You know, the Craig Anderson story, we talked about it, the Clark MacArthur story, although he left that game due to injury, which is just such a damn shame, really a shame, because this guy had been playing well. He's finally back, and he gets hurt again in Game 2. But just the togetherness is clear on this Ottawa team. They play as a team, they play as a unit, they play as a family, and we're seeing that right now. And the New York Rangers right now have issues in terms of their back end. Their back end is getting completely outplayed by Ottawa's. Erik Karlsson, Phaneuf, Cody Ceci, Mark Mathot, all of these guys are outplaying the Rangers' blue line. Mark Stahl's been awful. Dan Girardi is slow of foot. He's not the defenseman he was a few years ago. Ryan McDonough is the saving grace on this Ranger blue line. The rest of these guys have played very subpar in this series and really subpar in the playoffs. I didn't think they played great in round 1, but Montreal couldn't put a puck in the ocean, so it didn't matter. Ottawa can, and they're really testing this New York Rangers team on the defensive end. And for Henrik Lundqvist, as good as he's been, his guys in front of him not playing as good. And they're not playing as good because Ottawa's throwing a lot more firepower and a lot more offensive creativity at them than the Montreal Canadiens did. This is a problem for the New York Rangers. I don't see a way back. I said I liked Ottawa in the series. We gave Ottawa plus price in the series before it started right here on the Ice Guys Stanley Cup show. I'm not going away. In fact, you know what? Rangers be damned that they need this game tomorrow night, Tuesday, May 2nd. Minus 165 home favorite for a Rangers team that's been no good at Madison Square Garden. They've been awful at home. Below, barely 500, if not below 500 at home this year. They were always a better road team. I know they need the game, but what must win doesn't mean will win. I can only bet Ottawa at the plus price in that game. I mean, I understand the Rangers need the game, but at home where they've played mediocre hockey all season against an Ottawa team that's absolutely flying with confidence right now, no way do I lay that price with the Rangers, not even maybe.
That's a great point, Ian. You definitely don't want to just force it just because it's a desperate must-win game. One thing I'll say for this New York Rangers team, which I was pretty upset when my Habs went out last week, but one thing I will say is that they're kind of a team that are the same kind of as the Habs, where they had excellent goaltending and a tough back end, but they have trouble scoring. But when they do, it looks good. So what do they do in the first game? They score 1 goal in. Come back in game 2, they score 5 goals. And unfortunately, they still don't get the win. If I'm Henrik Lundqvist and I see my team get 5 goals and they still can't win, I mean, that's tough. That's tough for them. But when you've got this Ottawa Senators team that just rolls their lines, they get pucks deep. I mean, they don't do anything too fancy. And if you watch this game, I was sitting down looking at my buddy. I said, what's going to be the game changer for this game? Because to me, it looks like 2 goaltenders that are on a mission for this game to just go endless. I mean, especially in that game 1, it was just end-to-end action, but both goaltenders just there looking like brick walls, stopping anything that really came at them. So it's not going to be a special play. It's not going to be anything too specific that gets the job done for the Rangers, but they're going to have to find that special someone to step up for them. You're talking about Ryan McDonough, one of the main guys on the blue line for them. They're captain of their team who got a goal for them. You need to see more, in my opinion, from their defensemen stepping into the rush. You've got this New York Rangers team. It's a small team playing against what, in my mind, is actually been more of an aggressive Ottawa Senators team that I've been used to seeing. And when they get pucks deep in, they're tough to knock off the puck. They've got that solid blue line. They look to put the puck back to Erik Karlsson and their defensemen all the time to get those shots from the point. So I think that New York Rangers should really kind of change the pace here, respond back with their defensemen, and see what they can do. Because, in my opinion, even though, like you said about their defensemen, it doesn't seem like that's the problem for them. They just have to figure out how they're going to kind of stun the Ottawa Senators coming into the next game. Because Craig Anderson, Henrik Lundqvist, they're proving that they're, this goaltending matchup that you and I expected is live and active. Although it was kind of a who can score more, first to 6, first to 7 kind of game that we saw in the last one. Not really expecting that coming into the next game.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And Rick Nash has to be a game in, game out difference maker. He has a game where he's good, a game where he's invisible, game where he's good, game where he's invisible. He needs to bring that every single game if the New York Rangers are going to come back, win this series, and do some damage beyond this series. And then you look at it too from this Ottawa perspective. If they're going to start erasing 2-goal third period deficits and win games, who's going to stop them? Because we know how tough they are with a lead. This Ottawa Senators team. The Ottawa Senators with the lead, with this 1-3-1 modified trap system that Guy Boucher has brought in, we know they're tough to come back on. They've gotten better at defending a lead, but now if they're going to start coming back and erasing deficits and winning games, boy, sky could be the limit for the Ottawa Senators. But let's not get carried away. One game at a time. That's a big one coming up. Game 3, almost a must-win for the New York Rangers on Tuesday night. Let's wrap it up. One more series, Pittsburgh, Washington. The best for it hasn't been the best series, in my opinion. It was supposed to be. It's the series everybody's talking about, but hasn't been a fantastic series by any stretch. The Pittsburgh Penguins up 2-0 in the series, a 6-2 win on Saturday night. And now the Washington Capitals, here we go again, have never been out of the second round in the Alex Ovechkin era, down 2-0 in this series. Now going on the road, backs firmly against the wall. Do we see a response tonight from the Washington Capitals? I will say this in their defense. Pittsburgh in that 6-2 win was outshot 36-24. Washington just had a complete dominance in territorial play in the first period especially, and even into the second period. Just could not capitalize on their chances. Pittsburgh's power play has burned them. Braden Holtby didn't have his best game in Game 2 of this series, was pulled. Philip Grubauer played the third period, probably just to get him rest, get him refocused. The good news for Washington is I went back and looked. Braden Holtby's track record off getting pulled in a game this season has been very good. So I would expect Braden Holtby to be a lot better tonight. But there's a lot of pressure now on this Washington team. Nick Backstrom, he's got to step up a little bit. Alex Ovechkin, of course, he's had a decent series, but he can take it up another notch. Kevin Shattenkirk's getting just absolutely raked over the coals for a poor postseason, not playing as well, not getting their return on investment. The Washington Capitals so far for Kevin Shattenkirk after trading for him with the St. Louis Blues at the deadline. Really, it's simple. Washington hasn't played a terrible first 2 games. In fact, they played a very good game 2. Just got to bury some chances. Got to get some puck luck. Got to get some traffic at the net. Throw more pucks at the net. Try to shake Marc-Andre Fleury off his game, who's been absolutely sensational. You got to do little things. Traffic. Maybe bump him a little bit. Let him know, hey, you're not going to have an easy night tonight here in Pittsburgh with our backs against the wall. If we're going to go down in this series, we're going to go down making life miserable and getting in your kitchen and in your face. That's what Washington's got to be telling Marc-Andre Fleury tonight. So this is a fascinating game tonight. Washington can't afford to go down 3-0. This is one series where Pittsburgh, for as good a team as they are, I do not see them ever collapsing from a 3-0 series lead. So this is a must-win tonight for the Washington Capitals here against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Really, it's that simple, Andrew. They haven't played terrible, Washington. They've been the better team in extended stretches of a couple of these games, especially Game 2. Just got to bury your chances, and Pittsburgh, every single legitimate quality chance they've gotten, it seems, has gone in the net. We'll see if things change tonight.
Well, Ian, for everyone that's watching this right now and that's going to watch this in the future, my only question is, what do you expect from this Washington Capitals team throughout all of their lines. I mean, you look at the stat sheet every night, Ian, you're pretty much seeing the same names on that board for the Washington Capitals. And this Pittsburgh Penguins team has been doing well. But I'm talking about the hometown boy, Sidney Crosby, has just really been performing at top notch, and he's winning faceoffs, creating chances for his teammates, scoring, and will I say his best goal scoring that we've really seen of him almost in his whole career. He's really stepped up this year, and in the playoffs, I feel like he's looking to score more than he used to. Before, he used to just strictly try and set teammates up. Now he's almost more of a score first kind of guy. But again, like I mentioned with our last preview with the Senators and the Rangers there, I really do think that the Pittsburgh defensemen do a great job of kind of establishing the fact that they're involved in the game as well, and that they can, have some offensive presence as well, even though their defense. But one thing I will say is the difference is the fact that how fast these Pittsburgh Penguins team goes from a defensive mode, stopping Ovechkin, etc., to on the run, pushing the tempo, and turning into an offensive team that can really put Braden Holtby into a lot of pressure. So moving on, like you said, there's no chance. I don't see any way this Capitals team gets back in the series. Are they going to be desperate? Yes. I think you might be dumb not to take the over in the next game. Hate to use that word, but it could bite me in the ass right now. But I really think that if the Capitals are going to do anything, they're going to have to put up some good, solid numbers in the next game.
And that's actually going to lead me. We're going to wrap up with a play of the day, I guess you could say, because I'm not doing an NHL play of the day video on my own today. It's a Costa Rican holiday. We're going to give the video crew a little bit of a break. They deserve it. They work hard, long hours every single day. So I'm going to put my NHL play of the day right here, right now in the video. And Andrew sort of hinted at it right now. I cashed the over in game number 2 of this series on Saturday night. A client wager for sportsmemo.com, which is where my plays are available. And it was an easy one, 6-2. Washington has had trouble with speed and quick puck movement, quick defense to offense transition. Struggled with it against Toronto. Well, Pittsburgh can do it just as well, and they've got more depth. So that's been the whole issue with Washington in this series. I think Pittsburgh's going to be able still. I know Braden Holtby will play better. I'm sure he will. But I still think Pittsburgh's going to find the back of the net tonight. And I also think Washington's due for a breakout offensive game. Marc-Andre Fleury's been fantastic in this series, but they had a players-only meeting after game 2. Apparently it was well-received. It was constructive. It wasn't yelling. It wasn't throwing trash cans all over the locker room. It was constructive discussion about what we can do to be better. And one of the things I've read from the Washington camp, Barry Trotz, some of the players, they're putting every puck at the net tonight. And they are sending 2, 3, even 4 guys to the net at a time. They are really going to try to frustrate and get in the vision and the eyesight of Marc-Andre Fleury in that net. And I think it's going to work a little bit in this game for the Washington Capitals. Not that they weren't doing it in the first 2 games, but usually it was one shot, one chance, and out. I think you're going to see some sustained forecheck, some aggressiveness from the blue liners to keep pucks in the zone. And again, traffic is something they stressed going into tonight's game in front of Marc-Andre Fleury. So I think Washington will have their best offensive showing of the series tonight. Add it all up, I'm on the over again. 5.5. Washington-Pittsburgh over 5.5. That'll be play of the day material for the NHL, the one NHL game tonight between the Penguins and Capitals in game 4. Or in game 3, sorry, of this Eastern Conference semifinal. All right, that's going to just about wrap it up for our Ice Guys Stanley Cup playoff show. I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. Andrew, any final thoughts before we call it a day?
Fully agree, and kind of forgot about our little play of the day segment. If you're going to take on the Pittsburgh over, I'm going to look to the next game, and I'll take the Ottawa versus New York Rangers under the total in that next game. That's how the New York Rangers are going to win a game, because they cannot put up numbers. Henrik Lundqvist is going to have to steal a game, absolutely rob a game, if this New York Rangers team is going to do well. But with the horrendous defense they've shown us so far, I'm not really sure what to expect from them. But overall, I'll take that. In the next game, New York Rangers, Ottawa Senators under the total.
I like the play. I especially like unders after a wild, crazy 7-6, 6-5 kind of game. You just know both teams, hey, we don't want to get involved in that kind of sloppy, turnover-filled, pace-filled, high-scoring contest again, especially with the shift in venue now to New York. We saw it in the St. Louis-Nashville series. That series really grinded with the shift in venue to Game 3 to a lower scoring grinder. And I think we might see that with the New York-Ottawa series as well. Totally agree, 100%. Rangers-Ottawa under makes a lot of sense to me in Game 3 tomorrow night of that series. All right, that'll wrap it up. For Andrew McInnes, my buddy and my co-host, my colleague, I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. Join us next Monday for another edition of the Ice Guys Stanley Cup Betting Show. Until then, enjoy the games, enjoy the Stanley Cup playoffs, and good luck.